So you've saved $1 million for retirement and you're wondering if it's enough. Well, in this video, I'm sharing 10 things to consider that will help your $1 million go even further. And be sure to stay to the end because I will be walking through an example where Susie has $1 million saved, but she's got some work to do if she wants that to be enough. Now, when this question of do I have enough comes up, I often find that you might be asking the wrong question because your retirement success isn't based on how much you have. I know that it's probably different than what you've been told because Fidelity says that you need 8 times your salary by age 60 and 10 times your salary by age 67 in order to retire. But this is a bad rule of thumb because it's focused on the wrong thing. It's focused on how much you have been making and not how much you spend. And the reality is retirement is always based on how much you spend relative to how much you have. For example, Ron and Sandra are making $300,000 combined right now before they retire. Does that mean that they need $2.4 million saved, which is 8 times their current salary? Maybe, but what if I told you that they have no debt and they only spend about $60,000 per year? When we consider their spending, we can accurately say that no, they probably don't need $2.4 million. Now, if they have a large mortgage and their monthly spending is around $15,000 every month, $2.4 million might not be enough. This basic example demonstrates why retirement success is determined by how much you spend relative to how much you have. And this brings us to the first thing to consider as you evaluate your retirement readiness, which is what are your retirement needs? When thinking about your retirement needs, think about them in a couple different categories. The first one might be your essentials. What do you have to have every single month for spending, whether it be for healthcare or housing or food, whatever it might be in terms of you've got to have it every single month. Then you also have another category of discretionary expenses. So things that you typically like to do, but you necessarily don't have to do them. So there is a little bit of wiggle room perhaps there, but then also you got to kind of balance this with what your lifestyle expectations are in retirement. Whenever we think of retirement, we want to go and enjoy and do what we want to do that we've always dreamed of. But if you're not able to do that on $1 million, then the question for you would be, well, is $1 million enough for me to retire the way in which I want to retire? So whenever you think about your retirement needs, break these down into a few different categories to see, number one, does $1 million cover my essential expenses only? Does it cover my essential plus my discretionary? And does it actually offer me the lifestyle that I hope to have in retirement? The second thing to think about is your life expectancy and your longevity. Whenever you think about how long you could be retired, a couple different things have to be at play here. Number one, well, when are you going to be retiring? What is your age? Is it going to be 55 or 60 or 65 or 70 or even beyond 70? That's the first thing, is when are you retiring? And then also you've got to evaluate your life expectancy and kind of make the best guess that you can. So in the United States, around 77 years is the average life expectancy back in 2022. It's a little bit higher for females and a little bit lower than that for males. So depending on your gender, you might have to make that assumption as best you can. But then also we've got to factor in your family history, some different things that might be hereditary on your end that are specific to you. You've got to factor those in as you determine for your potential life expectancy. And as we think about this, we've got to think about how this could affect your expenses down the road in the later years, especially if you live a long time, but then you maybe have some health things that pop up while you're still living in those later years of life. So your life expectancy and your longevity are something to factor in. Basically, how long do you need to have this money last for you? Is it going to be 15 years or is it going to be 40 years? Because that's a big difference as you run your estimates and run your projections. The third consideration is going to be inflation and how this could impact your retirement savings. So this is going to tie into number 5 just a little bit whenever we get there in just a moment. But if we look back over the last 4 years, we've been in a fairly high inflationary time period, and we're unsure of how long that might last. It could keep going, it could slow down, who knows? But if we look over the next 20 to 30 years of your retirement outlook, we've got inflation that's going to be there. Something is going to cost more in the next few years, whether it be your healthcare, your food, your housing, whatever it might be, things are going to cost more, and you have to plan for that accordingly. Now, one thing I want to caution you on here is don't expect your expenses to go up every single year at the rate of inflation. Here's why. Typically, whenever we get to retirement, we have what we call different phases. We've got go-go years, slow-go years, and no-go years. So whenever we evaluate this, the first probably 5 to 10 years of your retirement, you're probably going to spend more money than you would in the slow-go or the no-go year. So you're probably going, doing, and enjoying. And so a lot of your money hopefully is being spent while you have the health and the opportunity to go spend your money. So that's whenever you are probably going to spend more. As you kind of get to this middle phase of retirement, your spending will likely go down because your activity will likely be going down as well. And once we get to the no-go years, this is kind of the later stages of life where you're probably not traveling around the world quite as often and you're not spending as much money. And the reason I say all this is because most of the time people project their expenses forward based on inflation rates. And if you think about it this way, it's not a realistic spending cycle. In fact, I see people spending less every single year over the course of their retirement instead of more, which is what we normally think about. So consider inflation and how that impacts your retirement plan, but I wouldn't place a ton of weight on this and expect that your spending will go up every single year at that rate of inflation. In fact, it might go down a little bit over the years. The fourth consideration is geographic factors. So where do you live and what does the cost of living look like in your area? Is it high or is it low? And if you live in a really high cost living area, it might make sense mathematically to move to a lower cost living area to make your retirement numbers work. But I get it. It's hard to kind of leave where you've been if that's where you want to stay, especially if you've got friends or family or just a community around you locally that you enjoy. So this is going to be a decision for you. Hey, what's it worth? Is $1 million going to be enough for me based on where I live and what the future expected cost of living looks like in this area? If it's not going to work mathematically, maybe you can evaluate a relocation to a different area that is a little bit lower cost for you. So geographic factors play a big role in terms of how much money you're going to have to spend over the next 20 to 30 years of your retirement. The fifth consideration is your investment returns and kind of the risks that come along with that. Let's say you've got $1 million, right? And you need that to grow over time to meet your spending needs. Well, if you get really conservative in retirement, what's going to happen is your portfolio is not going to keep up, number one, with your spending, but also potentially it's not going to keep up with inflation. So you've got to make sure that your returns in your portfolio and how your money is invested actually meets your specific retirement needs. So I would recommend not following the different rules of thumb that come with retirement investment portfolios, such as a 50-50 split or 60-40 allocation. I would probably say that you need to analyze what your needs are first, which goes back to the first part of this, but then also see, hey, based on those needs, how do I need to invest my money to meet those needs? So that's the fifth consideration, your investment returns. They're crucial to your retirement success, and you got to evaluate, am I going to be able to make enough money over this retirement period in order to meet all of my expense needs? The sixth consideration is your income sources outside of your portfolio. So think about Social Security or a pension or perhaps rental income or maybe a side hustle that you've got going on, maybe some part-time work. What income do you have coming in outside of your portfolio? Because that can be the thing that pushes you over the edge that allows you to retire if you've got other fixed sources of income rather than just having to rely solely on a 401k or an IRA. Because it's important to have a diversified set of income streams if you can, and having a pension that allows that to happen, but also Social Security is a big component of everyone's retirement and kind of deciding when to take it, how much should you delay, if at all, what are the benefits of delaying your Social Security. So don't look just at your portfolio, look at all of the other income sources you could have outside of that. The seventh thing to consider is your retirement withdrawal rate. We've all heard of the 4% rule, but I would like to say that that's really just some sort of baseline or something to use to check your retirement plan. Don't base your distributions out of your portfolio simply on this 4% rule because it doesn't really apply to most people. Especially once you get to retirement, you might see that your distribution rate is actually a lot higher than 4% in the first few years while you're not taking Social Security perhaps or not receiving your pension. But after you start getting your Social Security in or start receiving a pension, your distribution rate out of your portfolio could be well less than 4%. So you got to evaluate this over a 30-year time span. And I would say don't just take 4% out of your portfolio because that's what the rule says you can do. I'd probably just use this rule kind of as a way to evaluate whether or not you can spend as much as you're trying to spend out of your portfolio in consideration with your fixed income sources such as Social Security or a pension. The eighth consideration is any debt or other obligations you might have. If you've got a mortgage or credit cards or a car loan or some sort of HELOC, anything that you owe back to someone, I would say that if you can have that eliminated before retirement, that's going to be huge and give you a big lift towards your retirement success. One of the few markers that I like to look for with people that I work with is, hey, do you have any debt? And if so, how can we get rid of that as soon as possible? If you have no debt whenever you're going into retirement, it's almost always possible. And the success rate of someone with no debt in retirement is going to be great every single time. So eliminate your debt if you can before you enter retirement. And if you have to enter retirement with a little bit of debt, we can evaluate that and see how much does this actually impact us and can we carry this moving forward given how much money we have. The ninth consideration is any unexpected events, such as an emergency or a healthcare crisis that might come up or a large repair on a house or a car. You got to have a buffer. You got to have a little extra than you might think, a little bit of wiggle room so that you have enough money to cover things during these random times that might come up. So don't just take $1 million and say, yep, the math works if I spend exactly how much I think I'm going to spend every single year, because stuff will happen, life will happen, and you probably need to have a little bit of extra, a little bit of wiggle room there to make sure that you're not put in a bad situation if those different moments arise. And finally, the 10th consideration is the psychological and the emotional side of things. Are you going to retire and worry about things every single day if you only have $1 million? If you need to have more than that to sleep at night, then you might not need to retire yet, right? So even if the math might work on $1 million, but you're not going to be able to sleep at night, you're going to be a nervous wreck every single day. Do I have enough? What happens if I run out? Then it might not make sense to do it yet. So you've got to consider all these financial factors, but also you've got to consider the psychological and the emotional side of it too, because any plan that's good is one that you can execute. So if we have the best financial plan ever and we can't execute it because of the emotional situations that we're in, kind of the lack of peace that we might feel, then it's not worth having the plan. It's not worth trying to execute it. So that's the 10th thing. That's one of the biggest considerations in my opinion. So with all of those things in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at Susie's situation. She's got $1 million, and let's look at her situation and see what she can do to improve things for her to be able to retire in the coming months. So right here, we've got Susie, and we can see that her total net worth is around $1.15 million. And of that amount, about $978 is in her retirement accounts. She's got $900,000 in an IRA, which is all tax deferred. She's got another $78 in her brokerage account, and she's got about $50,000 cash. So I like the cash position. I like the fact that she's got a little bit of brokerage account money, but all of her retirement assets are tax deferred. Something else to point out here in her situation is that she's got a $300,000 mortgage on her house, as well as a little bit left on a car. Her house is worth about $450,000. So let's take a look at how much money she might need every month. Her goal is to retire at 63. She's going to retire in March of 2025. That's her hope. And right now she's spending, or expect to spend, around $3,500 a month as kind of like non-housing expense and non-healthcare expense. So kind of food, gas, insurance, all the things that she's got to take care of every month, around $3,500, property tax, everything else. Now, for her health insurance costs, what I've got is essentially before Medicare. Her employer's not helping out in any capacity on her health insurance before 65. I'm estimating that we're going to spend around $10,000 per year on premiums for a private policy. Now, once she gets to retirement, again, I'm going to shoot a little bit conservative here. We're going to say that she's going to have a Medigap policy on top of her Part B, and then also she'll have a Part D plan as well, which is an additional $3,500 or so out of pocket on top of her Part B premium. So we're shooting a little bit high, I think, on some of her medical, but I want to be conservative here. She also mentioned that, hey, I've got this $400,000 house, but it does need some work. I need a new roof at some point. I've got to replace some floors at some point. Things are just kind of starting to break a little bit. So I've got to do something about that. So she said, hey, what if we tried to do around $10,000 per year of home improvement costs for the next kind of 5 to 6 years? So we've got that plugged in of spending around $10,000 a year for those things. Also, she wants to go travel a little bit. So I've got travel of $10,000 per year for about 10 years starting at retirement age for her. And then also she's like, hey, can I get a new car in a few years? So I've got a $50,000 car plugged in there for 2030. So that's some of the things that she wants to be able to do in terms of her goals from a monthly spending standpoint, some of her healthcare costs, but then also some of the things that she's got to take care of otherwise. Now, right now, she's making about $105 every single year, and her Social Security at 67, or her full retirement age, would be about $2,700 per month. So with all of this kind of understood, let's see what's going on in her retirement projections. Is $1 million enough for her? Right now, it does not look like, based on some of the inputs, that is going to work. So we've got to figure out what we need to do in order for this to work out for her. Okay, so right now we're taking her Social Security at 67. I want to understand, hey, what should we do? What's the optimal strategy? Well, right now it says to take it at 70, assuming that she passes away at 90. Now, what if she passes away at 80? I'm curious if that changes what's optimal. It does. Yeah, it actually changes it just slightly. It says, "Hey, take it a year earlier because you died 10 years earlier than we're thinking right now." So that's something to consider as well. We're going to bump this just back to 90 just to keep it consistent for now. But what are the things that we probably need to alter here? So the Social Security, if we wait 3 more years, it really only bumps us just a little bit, and you can see really quickly how that changes her cash flow projections. So her income instead. So our proposed plan now starts at 70 rather than the current plan. It would start here at 67. And so you can see it's a little bit lower amount, but you get started a little bit sooner. If we go back over, what can we change? We got to make some improvements here. So what if we push out retirement 1 year? It's not what she wants to do, but I'm just want to see what happens here if she does that. Okay, so that's a fairly good jump, right? So that helps just to work 1 more year. So that means it's 1 more year of not taking money out of her portfolio. Get closer also to Medicare age, which is helpful as well to save on some healthcare costs. What happens if we get all the way to healthcare age? Okay, so that's really helpful. So if she waits 2 more years, all the way to 65, what that would do is, number one, that would allow her to do some of the home improvement she wants to do starting in 2025 at the amount that she needs to do that at. Also, we're saying that her travel would start in 2025 as well. So she would get to kind of start her retirement a little bit early while she's still working, perhaps. But then also, too, we've still got this $50,000 car that she thinks she might have to buy there in the future as well. So that helps us out a lot if she wants to retire a little bit later. Not what she wants to do, but maybe she has to do that. We'll see. But what if we move this back to 63? I want to see if she cuts out some travel. So we're going to put that back. Now, remember, we're still taking this at 70 for now. Let's bump this back to the current strategy of 67. How much does it help? So we're back to baseline plan. How much does it help to move this down to $5,000 a year of travel rather than 10? So we're cutting our travel budget in half. Let's see there. Okay, so that helps. What about home improvement? What if there's some things that she's got to do, like a roof and a couple other things she has to do, but what if there's a little bit like, hey, don't put the new countertops in or don't do that bathroom remodel? If there's some things she can hold off on, what if we just cut her home improvement budget annually by $5,000, so cut it in half? So we're saving an extra $10,000 a year total between these two. Okay, so that's that. Now we've got, what about the new car? What if we don't buy a $50,000 car? What if we buy a $30,000 used car? Right, find something a little bit cheaper that works. Now we're up to 50. I don't know if there's much room to actually cut back on her monthly expenditures. So what if we combine all of this with 1 more year of work? So 68. In my opinion, once we get to 75%, that's in a fairly good range. Now let's delay our Social Security until 70. Okay, so we're getting close to 75%. So hopefully what you're seeing here by just looking at her situation, yes, she's got $1 million, but a few different things are holding her back. It's going to be her debt, right? So she's got a monthly payment every single month, about $1,700 she's got to pay for the house, plus another $600 for the car that she's paying. So those two things automatically increase her spending floor no matter what. If those are not there, so think about it in your situation, if you have no debt, that's going to be helpful because you can reduce how much you have to spend every single month. Also, too, for her, we're going to have to cut back somewhere. We've got to cut back on either her monthly expenditures, we've got to cut back on how much she is going to be doing to home improvement, or perhaps she won't be able to travel for a few years. So we've got to think about these things. Unfortunately for her, that's the reality, but hopefully this gives you an idea of some things to consider in your situation as you go through and say, hey, is $1 million enough for me? How does my situation compare to hers? And then from that point, you can say, hey, I've got some work to do. Maybe $1 million is not enough, or maybe it is enough if I work a couple more years. What are the things that I can do for my situation to improve things for my retirement outlook? So let me know down in the comments if this video was helpful for you as you continue to evaluate your plan and how things are going to go for you in retirement. And if you need help with something like that, if you need help building your plan or just getting second opinions, reach out to me. You can schedule a call. It's completely free using the link down in the description below. I'd be happy to have a conversation with you, get to know you a little bit, and hear more about how I might be able to help. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.